Hey, and welcome to Daddy Mojo. It's the podcast where we'll talk about parenting, all-age comic books, toys, and more. Now, here's your host, Trey Burley.
I bet if I sat down with 10 of you, 8 of you wouldn't know what an engineer does. And that's totally cool because I didn't know either. I'm still coming to grips with it myself because an engineer, if you say to a kid, that person is an engineer, it's not as structured and as obvious as like a police officer or a firefighter or a lawyer or a doctor. An engineer can work in any field, and it's hard for a kid, a young child, to conceptualize that. That's where this book comes in so darn handy. This Little Engineer, a think and do primer. It highlights 12 people, probably 10 of the 12 kids have never heard of. Even you adults might scratch your brain and say, oh, that's the person that did that. Because it reaches into the far realms of engineering to say, let's highlight some of these people that you may not know. They're not front burner people for the most part. And it tells you what they do. And this is where young kids will kind of get it and say, oh, well, I could be an engineer. Because you think of Caltech or Georgia Tech or one of those great engineering schools, and you think, what do they do? An engineer, basically, I'm totally paraphrasing here, but an engineer makes things better. They make them stronger, they make them faster, they make them cheaper, they make them more efficient, they make it easier to navigate. You could have a computer engineer, an architectural engineer, a medical engineer. There are so many categories of engineering that it could be that it's broken down into 2 pages in the back of the book, where it's like, oh, if I want to go into whatever, I'm going to pick up the book right now in real time and say, oh, I want to be an environmental engineer. I want to protect and improve Earth's air and other stuff. And you think, oh, I want to be in conservation. Maybe that's an environmental engineer. It's a smart book, and it's a great example of board books are as smart as you treat them. And this is a very smart board book that's approachable in that the text is great for those crawlers through pre-K and first grade kids, but the content is that stuff that's going to make them think and say, you know what, kid? You could be an engineer. You could make things better. You could figure out how to dissolve plastic by doing something funky to it. I don't know. You're the engineer of the future. But it's a great board book, and it's one of those board books, really, there's a whole series of them. It's like this little, and let's pick up the book again because I totally forgot, this little scientist, this little wonder, what the heck's that? This little rainbow, this little environmentalist, this little dreamer. It's a whole series of them. This book is great, though, because it gets kids thinking, and it says, go out and solve problems. It's Trey with Daddy Mojo.
Thanks for listening to Daddy Mojo. Be sure to tune in next time. For more information on any of the things we talked about today, just check out the website, daddymojo.net, or hit us up at Daddy Mojo on social media.